Welcome back to Dan Talks United. Yes, this is just a recap of the West Ham game because there's no game now for about 12 days or so. Bit of a break because there's FA Cup coming up, and guess what? We're not in the FA Cup anymore. Thanks to Brighton, and also not in the Carabao Cup, thanks to Grimsby. But anyway, let's move on really quickly. So, just going to cover a bit of a recap of that West Ham game, that 1-1 draw. A little bit on the presser. Also, a little bit more on Carrick as well. Something on Ratcliffe, our co-owner. Nice one. Also, a little bit on managers and where do we go next? Who do we go for next? And looking at some of the sacked managers. United Strand, should we mention him? And then just about the next game coming up. So, let's get kicked off then. Right then, so the West Ham game. Still disappointed. 1-1 draw. I think Carrick would even admit that we could have set up differently. I think I would have put Mbuma on the right-hand side, to be honest, or up top. Have Cunha on the left-hand side there. And then let, obviously, Bruno pull the strings from the middle. I think we needed to put more crosses into the box. I think we needed to try and work out a way to score in a different manner because obviously we haven't got that pattern down yet to break down a low block. And it was always going to be a big test for Michael Carrick and this team because we've never really been able to do it before. So maybe a few more, like I say, don't want to turn into set-piece FC, but sometimes set-pieces are key against a low block, especially if you can't break them down by trying to play through them. Now, we tried to play through the middle of them too much, and we needed to use the wings, get down the sides a bit more, and get some crosses in. And potentially, we may have wanted to put Sesko on, really. Now, obviously, Sesko came on and saved a point for us, but would we have been a bit better if he either came on earlier or even started the game? Who knows? But anyway, it's something for Carrick to think about in the next game because obviously we've got more teams to come that are either going to do a mid to low block and we need to find a way to get past that because we need to cement that top 4, top 5. We have to get European football this season. We have to do it. We have to do it to progress, to get better players and to move forward. If we're ever going to think about trying to get another title, we have to get better players, we have to improve, and this is the way to do it. So let's just have a quick sort of recap on the presser. So there wasn't a lot said, and this was, I believe, after the West Ham game anyway. And I think Carrick was sort of saying he was happy enough with the point because obviously we've snatched a loss, or from the jaws of a loss. Sesko's come on, really nice finish. So it's another finish. I need to see that again, actually, because I haven't watched that back. It's quite interesting how he hit the ball and got it into the top corner. It was quite a deft touch, really. I don't think there's anything else he could have done to score in that position. And debatable whether it's a cross that you would normally put into Sesko, because you'd normally go high, really. So low cross, and he volleys it in, and beautiful. So like I say, I think Carrick would probably admit himself that we need to do better when it comes to trying to break down a low block. We need to just do some different ideas, really. Just like I say, I think it's all about trying to get the ball into the box and trying to sort of test their defence. And I don't think we did that enough for me. And we didn't test their goalkeeper enough either. And obviously, we don't want to resort to sort of long pop shots, which we often do, especially when we are struggling against a low block. So let's go into a bit of news now. And our guy, Carrick, is won Manager of the Month for January. Now, obviously, only really 2 games in January, so he's beat City, beat Arsenal. But for me, I think he deserves it. I think he's come in, breath of fresh air. It's what we needed. It's that push, that bounce, although the pin seems to have gone into the balloon now, and some of the air's come out, and we've ended up drawing against West Ham. Hopefully, we can plug that gap, get some air back in, have a bit more of a bounce against Everton in the next game, but we'll have to see. But I do feel he deserves it, but just to see him and his staff there, the short list that actually features Dyche, who's been sacked from Forest, and there's Areola there as well, Liam Rosenior. It's very interesting that, although it's not exactly the same, Chelsea sacked their coach after their coach was speaking out. We sacked our coach after our coach was speaking out. They've used somebody that they know. It's a part of their group. And we've used someone that we know, but it's an ex-pro, it's an ex-legend. So very interesting pathways, very interesting that both teams, Manchester United and Chelsea, decided to do this, but it's also propelled them and got them back in that sort of talking point of top 4, top 5. So very interesting pathways there. So it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out, to be honest. So moving on to this guy, Mr. Ratcliffe himself, speaks out again. He definitely needs to stop speaking. I think if he's going to do interviews, he just needs to stick to business, stick to Ineos if he's going to do it. But when he starts to, I suppose anything he says really is going to start to muddy the waters of Manchester United. And anybody that's interviewing him is always going to bring up Manchester United, is linked to us. As much as he has been linked to Ineos a lot longer, Manchester United are a big brand. So whatever he does, it just heaps embarrassment on Manchester United to the point where the club have had to put a statement out. He's sort of apologised, but not really. He's done one of those sort of, I'm sorry for the way you feel about my comments, and it's that sort of thing. So not great there. But as this clipping shows there, basically saying that immigration is paying more into the UK than Ratcliffe is, because it's a big fat zero when this guy is living in Monaco, tax-free havens type stuff, and avoiding paying tax in this country, but then he's speaking out against immigration. Very interesting. Not going to get into that because it's not a politics show, but just very interesting that our co-owner is just embarrassing us. And he keeps doing this every time he speaks out. But anyway, let's move on to... So just before I bring up the picture, we've currently got Carrick in place. We had the bounce, 4 wins in a row. That's been halted now, so it's 4 wins and a draw. People will say and think, okay, he didn't win against West Ham. However, still unbeaten. However, it's 13 points in 15. It's more than what you could hope for. So people will spin it. And you can spin it both ways, really. You can look at it as a negative and say, how can't you beat West Ham? And the bounce is over. Or you can look at it in a positive way and say, would you expect him to have got that many points before a ball was kicked against City? Because I, for one, didn't think we'd beat City. I, for one, didn't think we were going to beat Arsenal. And then I thought Fulham was a test. And Spurs, because Spurs has our number. So there is positives there. But what I'm definitely not saying is Carrick is the guy to be the coach right now, and we still have to wait. However, let's move on to these guys that's Ratcliffe, sorry. These guys sat at the bus stop. Obviously, the bus stop's not real, but these 5 that have been sacked. Now, all of these 5, at one point, there'd been multitude of fans that would have had any one of these 5 as a coach at Manchester United. When you go sort of 12 months back. Now, for me, probably the weak link there, and that's before we saw what Amorim was like, would be Thomas Frank for me. But there'd be a lot of fans that would have wanted Thomas Frank and felt that he deserved to step up to the next stage. And I'm not saying he didn't deserve that, because he did a really good job at Brentford. But I keep saying, hipster coaches, hipster managers, this is kind of what you get. So when you've got the tacticos, they're saying, look what they're doing at this club, look what they've done at that club, look at the stats here, look at the way they play football, look how they set up their teams. Doesn't mean anything when they step up, because the pressure's different. So if you are a coach at Brentford and you go into your press room and there's about 3 journalists there and they're all asking you nice questions and there's not really much, there's no euphoria around you, then you go to, in obviously Frank's case, Spurs, you might go into the press room and there's 15 journos there, or you come to Manchester United and there's 30 journos there, all chomping at the bit to ask a question, to the point that not every journo could probably get a question in, and it has to have part 2s and 3s and what have you. It's a massive difference, and the euphoria, the press around you, the releases on social media, constantly cameras everywhere. It's a completely different beast. So, at the bus stop, we have Thomas Frank, we've got Amorim there, we've got Alonso in the middle, we've got Maresca, and we've got De Zerbi. So put your comments in below. Would you want, obviously not Amorim, but would you want any of the others, any of the other four? Would you like to see any of the other four at Manchester United? Do you think they could do a good job? But for me, it's all that sort of hipster culture right there. So Thomas Frank is bombed at Spurs. Amorim is sort of bombed at Manchester United to a certain extent. Okay, there's mitigating circumstances there. You could say that we haven't really given him the opportunity because he wasn't fully backed in terms of all the players he needed for his system. But what he did have in front of him, you can say, is bombed. Alonso did really well in Germany, sort of, getting ahead of Bayern Munich and getting the title. Then goes to Real Madrid, pretty much gets the ball, telling him in a way that they want him to play. You got the disrespect from Mbappe when there was meant to be doing a guard of honour for Barcelona, and he's just telling all the players to move and not stand there. But Alonso was the one to say, give him a guard of honour for respect. You've got Maresca there, who's meant to be Pep's baby and the one that's going to take over from Pep and be, the successor to Pep. Goes to Chelsea. I wouldn't say bombed because I think they played decent football. They won the Club World Cup, that sort of thing. But ultimately, not in his job anymore. And then De Zerbi, really nice football at Brighton. Goes over to Marseille. Does all right there as far as I'm aware. Didn't really follow it. Don't follow French football. But then ultimately loses his job, however that happened. So, again, going back 12 months ago, these five could go where they want in a certain extent. They've probably been interviewed by really top teams across the world, and now they're sat at a bus stop. Would we have one of them? And then just to finish off on this, because as I was saying there, they're probably a tier below what we really want. And obviously, the problem we've got now, though, and again, put your feelings in the chat. We would really want, and I will tier it this way: Enrique number 1. Then I'd probably say Ancelotti number 2, and I'd probably say Tuchel number 3. And as far as I'm aware, none of them are accessible because Enrique has got a contract that lasts until 2027, and I think PSG are trying their best to hold on to him. If rumours are to be led to be true, then he's sort of said he doesn't want to move anyway. Then you've got Ancelotti, where apparently he's going to be signing, I thought he already did this, but he's meant to be signing another contract with Brazil, which is going to keep him there for a long time. I think even up to the next World Cup. And then you've got Tuchel, who's done the same, where he's going to be there till the Euros. So all three of them have said, we've checked out. We're not coming to Manchester United. So what do we do now? That's the question. What do we do now? So the next tier then is, do you look at Poch, that's probably going to go to Spurs? Do you look at Nagelsmann, who's another hipster for me? So we're running out of choices. We're running out of choices. Where do we go next? It's a really important question. So now we're just faced with what can Carrick do from now to the end of the season? And then we have to think, where do we go then? Now, Spurs have got had an opening, but they've filled it. I can't remember what his name is. So I'm guessing that De Zerbi's possibly not going there then, unless he said he doesn't want to take over at this stage and wants a rest. So does that mean that De Zerbi's sort of chilling on the sides, waiting for Carrick to do his work and then take over? Do we want De Zerbi? I mean, who else is there? Difficult one. We don't know who else is going to get sacked before the end of the season either. We don't know whether Liverpool are just biding their time to get rid of Slot, and who comes, and maybe Alonso in the middle of that bus stop that I showed might step into Liverpool. Who knows? But put your comments in below. So, just to sort of start to come to end of the video now, have to mention him, United Strand. But even funnier still is West Ham players apparently getting haircuts after the game, after they stopped us from getting the 5 wins in a row, taking the piss out of Frank for the United Strand, and they're all getting haircuts, basically saying, you can't get a haircut, but we can. Now, you can look at it in multiple ways. Should West Ham really be bantering Manchester United if that's what they're sort of doing when you're sitting in whatever position you're in, 17th, 18th, or whatever it is? Maybe just having a bit of a laugh and poking fun at Frank, maybe. Fair enough. But last thing I'm going to say on it is, this is why I'm a bit fed up of this. So obviously, it's good what he's done for charity, and I get all that. But the focus where he's getting brought up in presses and asking Carrick what he thinks about it. There's journalists just talking about it generally. You watch the match against West Ham and you've got commentators talking about it. It's getting ridiculous now, beyond a joke. So now it starts again, as I said before. So because we've drawn, it goes back to 0 now. So at least for the next 5 games, we've got this bullshit. Obviously, you can say he's not to blame. It's not his fault, and he probably wouldn't have known what was going to happen. But unfortunately, lad, this is where we're at now. The focus is on you, my friend. So when we get close to a winning run, it's always going to be, is the guy going to get his hair cut? I mean, you look at betting apps, and they've got it on betting apps. He's got his picture on there with the razor ready to go. It's absolutely ridiculous. But modern day stuff, I suppose. This is what we've got to deal with. Anyway, just to finish off then, next match, as I was saying, is against Everton. I can't remember if it's like the 23rd or something like that. So obviously we've got a little bit of a break now. So I suppose it's a chance for Carrick to get the boys back on the training pitch and try and devise a plan to break down Everton. And not just Everton, because we'll have other teams that we need to play. We're going to play sort of a mid to low block. And we just need to really figure something out here, because it's just not acceptable to keep dropping points against these lower sides, because we need to finish in that sort of top 4, top 5 and get that European spot. And irrespective of this guy in the hair, this is what we need for the club. So again, tell us what you think. Do you think that we are going to finish in the sort of top 4, top 5 area? Do you think that the bubbles burst properly? Do you think we can reinflate it and bounce again? What do you think? Put your comments in below. But as always, please like, please share, please subscribe, because it's really important to new channels. And I will definitely see you on the next one, which will possibly be the preview to the Everton game. Come on, United!